sometimes you can have a good outcome and it's a good decision, or you can have a bad outcome and you still made the right decision with the information and the context that you had. I'm Michael Mogill, founder and CEO of Crisp, the nation's #1 law firm growth company. I've built my business through practice, not theory. Crisp started with just $500 to my name and has grown to over 8 figures in revenue over the last few years, earning a spot on the Inc. 500 list of the fastest growing private companies in America. Our approach has been to take everything we've learned about generating massive growth within our own organization and help the country's most ambitious and committed law firm owners do the same for theirs. In each episode of this podcast, I sit down with innovative market leaders from the legal industry and beyond to learn from those who thrive in the face of adversity, challenge the status quo, and define what it means to be a true game changer.
This is Jessica, Head of Coaching Strategy at Crisp, and today we're flipping the script for another special edition episode to get Michael's take on overcoming paralysis when decisions have major ripple effects, how to empower your leaders to act without constant oversight, and distinguishing between personnel issues and structural flaws.
You look at this any professional sports team. You look at the offense. Offense cares about getting touchdowns when you're talking about football, and then the defense cares about not giving up the ball and touchdowns as well. But when you combine the two, like both care about winning the game.
That's coming up on the Game Changing Attorney podcast. All right, here we are, another AMMA.
We're back for another one. This is, I believe this episode is going to release a few days before Valentine's Day. Okay.
Biggest Hallmark holiday there ever could
be.
be.
Oh, yeah. So it's amazing what Valentine's Day is for different people. You are, I don't know, if you are in a new relationship, I hope you made your reservations. All right. I hope you got the flower bouquet going. I hope you got the chocolates and so on. If you are in, like, I don't know, if you have kids, I hope you got their Valentine's.
Yeah, it's all about them now.
I'm excited about, we got 2 girls and, getting them some, they're my Valentines. And then if you've been in a relationship for a really long time and you still get, I don't know, like this is kind of the part where we could, some people are going to feel a certain kind of way.
Right.
If someone's giving you a hard time because you didn't do something on Valentine's Day and you've been in a relationship for a long time, I mean, come on. Like, this is silly.
Tell them
right?
what I do every year.
You go away.
I leave on Valentine's.
Yeah. Like you do like a girls trip or something. I'm like, great. Like, but here's the point. If you need a day to celebrate somebody, like show that you love them, maybe that itself is the issue, right? As far as I'm concerned, every day is Valentine's Day.
Every day.
Right? Every day.
Especially these Fridays lately.
That's what I was getting to because, so fellas, date your spouse, date your partner, and we have been doing these Friday lunches that I look forward to literally starting probably Monday.
Literally,
right?
You already on Monday start picking out restaurants.
So a lot of people don't know this, and they don't consider like Atlanta as a great like foodie spot, but you would be surprised. There's a lot of hidden gems in Atlanta for really every type of cuisine. Like no matter what you enjoy, whether you like pizza, Italian, like barbecue, wings, like anything you could like, sandwiches, any like Vietnamese cuisine, like Japanese food, like Persian food, whatever you like. There is a hidden gem in Atlanta somewhere that is either already like a Michelin star or is just like a really like best kept secret. And we were talking about this at the all hands meeting earlier today, where I was asking the team like, hey, like what's a good wing spot? What's a good burger spot, right? And for some of these, the answers are like unanimous. And some, it's tough to choose because there's so many good options. So what I do is, because I'm in a deprived state at the moment, meaning that training for a triathlon, hungry all the time, no matter how much I eat, but you're thinking about food. And when I'm scrolling on TikTok, it's all of these like restaurant reviews.
Yes,
right?
you do this to yourself. Let this be known.
Yeah,
he stops eating at 5 p.m. every day.
Yes.
And you, 6 p.m., whatever, 7 p.m., you were just looking at food while you're starving.
I'm getting inspiration for where we will go on Friday. Okay. So I mean, look, the last few picks have been pretty good,
They
right?
have been
So,
good. I will give you that.
Last week we went to Mr. 01.
Yeah.
Really great pizza spot. I think it started in Miami, and now they've got a couple locations in Georgia. Really, really, really great pizza. The week before, we went to Fred's Meat and Bread at Krog Market, which they've been Michelin recognized for their Korean Philly cheesesteak. They've also got a really great burger. And, every week we try to find, something that we look for at a lunch spot because, the cool thing about eating lunch is that you can be done before 5 o'clock.
Right. It's like it's a very late lunch, very early dinner. If there were a word like brunch, it would be that, but in the afternoon.
Yeah. So I look forward to it. And fellas, I would say date your spouse because we get to try new foods. But it's also we set aside time to where it's almost like you get a date night or kind of a date day every single week. And it's also like the kids are still in school, right? So it's like before we pick them up, last time we ate, then we surprised them, picked them up from school. And, we had a Nutella calzone earlier that day that they know nothing about because we were like, oh yeah, should we take it home? Should we package this up and then take it home to share with the girls? And after we had a bite, we decided that would not be happening because we'd be eating the entire thing. So, and then
What's the ratio? How much do I eat versus you?
Well, I mean, that's kind of the interesting thing because I would say that conservatively, you probably eat about a third and I'll eat 2/3. More realistically, I think you'd probably eat a quarter or whatever the meal is and I'll eat 75% of it. But here's the cool thing. I think from people say, is that on your diet? Are you allowed to eat that? Right? Like, I mean, it's such a silly question. Like, am I allowed to eat that? First of all, I'm a grown-ass man. Like, I'm not asking anyone for permission to eat something, right? At the second, on the other side of that is you can really eat whatever you want as long as it fits into like your calories and macros. So, I mean, calories, and look, some people are going to dispute this, and there's a difference in terms of like the nutrient profile of something. Like, obviously, like eating cheeseburgers and fries is not the same thing as if you're going to eat like vegetables and like lean meat, and like chicken and and so on. But from an energy standpoint, in terms of like calories and macros, if those align, you can really eat whatever you want. Just kind of plan your day around it, right? You may have a lighter breakfast, in favor of a heavier lunch, right? So. And then you can absolutely still lose weight, even eating like something like that every single week.
Yeah.
So anyway, I guess my point with this is with Valentine's Day coming up, I would encourage you to, in the late John Ruhlin used to always say this, is that if you can do special things on without it having to be a holiday, right? So like when the holidays come around and Christmas and so on, a lot of businesses are sending out like cards and gifts and mailers and that sort of thing, but everybody is at that time. So it's easy to get kind of lost in all that and lost in the shuffle versus if you send somebody something on a random day or an off day, not tied to a holiday, it's a lot more meaningful and special because you're not competing against everybody else. So if every day is Valentine's Day, then you're probably not going to be upset if your wife goes out of town on Valentine's Day for a girls' weekend. So, and plus, I got to spend the weekend with the Valentines.
The real loves of your life.
Those two. Oh yeah. And the coolest thing is like they say I'm their Valentine, so they will like I think they're working on something in school where it's like some chicken scratch on a sheet of paper, and they're like, I made this for you, and then of course we take it and I like frame it and put it in my office. Right? I'm like, what is this again? It's you, Daddy, and it's like a squiggly line. I'm like, looks just
best.
like me.
Yes.
So all right, let's get to the AMA. This is where you guys submit the questions. We answer them on the show. You can text us at 404-531-7691 with your question. Jessica compiles them. We answer them. This is one of 3 types of episodes. We've got this AMA. We've also got the traditional podcast where we bring on a guest from the legal industry and beyond, ask them all sorts of questions, and then the encore editions, which are where we bring back some of our most popular episodes, and you get the chance to hear them again. Or if you haven't heard them before on the podcast, these are, again, some of the most popular episodes. You can come away with really great takeaways. We have themed those out as well. So with that, Jessica, let's get to it.
All right, let's kick it off today with question number 1. Hey, Michael, my firm just crossed $12 million in revenue, and I'm realizing every decision now has ripple effects I didn't have to think about before. When we were smaller, if I wanted to change our case management software, we just did it. Now that decision affects over 40 people, integrates with 5 other systems, could disrupt operations for months. I feel like I'm spending more time second-guessing and thinking through the consequences of decisions than actually making them. How do you move decisively when there are so many downstream effects that you can't fully predict? I feel paralyzed by complexity.
Well, that is your job as the leader, especially as you scale. And what it really is what you just described is that you take complexity and your aim is to create clarity and to simplify said complexity. So it can be complexity on the way up, but it should be clarity and simplicity on the way down. So the way in which you do that, I mean, again, this is as the business scales and there's more moving parts, inherently what we're defining there is just there's more people you interface with, more decisions you have to make. That is just complexity. And certain people affect other people, decisions affect other decisions. There's first order decisions, second, third order, et cetera. And you're trying to make sense of it all and trying to exercise the right judgment that is essentially going to get the firm to achieve its goals or move it in the direction of whatever the vision is for the firm. So how do you do it? This is a skill that can be trained just like anything else. It's generally the type of thing when you're starting the firm and you don't have as much complexity, you kind of build up to those levels of capability. As the complexity increases, you become more comfortable with it and just analyzing more of the inputs. But let's say you're here and maybe the difficulty scaled up very quickly and you just don't feel prepared. I think it's important to have a decision framework in terms of how you go about making decisions. A lot of this can be looked at in terms of probabilities of outcomes. So you consider, okay, based on this decision, what are the first order consequences, the second order consequences, the third order consequences? Like how does it cascade down? You should kind of play out the different scenarios of what the possible outcomes could be and then assign probabilities to each of those outcomes, even if they are subjective probabilities, just to basically do it in an explicit way. And then you consider, okay, well, what's my probability of making the right decision? And and then basically what's the probability of it not working out? And the aim should also be, if I make the right decision, then what happens? What's the upside? And if I make the wrong decision, what's the downside? And then when you evaluate those probabilities between probability being right versus probability being wrong versus the upside of being right versus the downside of being wrong, and then you can get really an expected value out of those two. And the aim is that you make the best decision that you can with the information that you have. And sometimes you don't have enough information, but I found that generally if you have about 70% of the information, that's enough to make a decision, because not making a decision is making a decision, right? Sometimes you delay things and there's a cost to that, the opportunity cost of not making a decision, of being decisive. But you want to make sure, really, I think if you want something tactical here outside of that equation, it's really just to make sure that you are in a good mental state, that you are making decisions very objectively, unemotionally, that you're well rested, you have like clarity of mind, because the worst thing you want to do is to make a decision that you can't really undo.
Correct.
When you're in a compromised state, you're exhausted, you're frustrated, like you feel any of those emotions. It's just not really a good place to make decisions from. And then I think the only other thing I would say about this is that it is important that you ultimately decide. And you don't always have to be right. So sometimes I think it's something we've been talking about here internally is basically being able to separate decision quality from outcome. So meaning that sometimes you can have a good outcome and it's a good decision, or you can have a bad outcome and you still made the right decision with the information and the context that you had. So just because you may have an outcome that doesn't work out doesn't necessarily mean you made a poor decision, especially if you use your own decision framework with, again, hindsight's always 20/20. But if you look at, okay, here's kind of the situation that we have. Let's talk about moving case management software. Like, who's going to be impacted by this? What's the upside of making this move, and what are all the benefits? What's the downside of not doing anything, and what are all the downsides? What, again, based on who it's going to affect, how could it affect them? What's the likelihood that we, experience the upside versus what's the likelihood that we experience the downside? And then you go from there and you just decide and you make decisions. And I think the good thing here is that, as maybe the final thing I'll say here, is that you don't have to bat 1,000. Like, you don't have to be right all the time. In fact, what was it? Roger Federer, we were watching his keynote he gave earlier this morning. And he talked about that even like world-class tennis players are like, they miss, or they lose a point like every 46% of the time?
Yeah.
Something like that. So it's, as long as you're right 51% of the time,
exactly,
you will get to where you're going. And even if you're an elite business operator, CEO, it's funny, like people think, oh, they must make like 95% of the right decision.
No.
Absolutely not. I mean, I would say you're pretty much, you're probably world class if you're 60-40.
Yeah.
Right? If you're right 60% of the time.
Yeah.
But even if you're right 51% of the time, you will eventually get to where you're going.
Right.
So I wouldn't beat yourself up over outcomes that don't go your way. The most important thing is that if it's consistently things aren't going your way, that you can start to really evaluate your decision-making framework and really determine, okay, if there's a pattern of things not going our way, then maybe how I make decisions could be improved. But at the same time, if you made the best decision possible with all the information that you had at that time, and you consider the first and second and third order consequences, you assign probabilities to things, you're in like a state of clarity, you weren't emotionally impacted or compromised during that time, and it doesn't have the outcome that you would like, and maybe it's just the best decision with the information you had. And that is a decision framework that will serve you well, that will eventually lead to good outcomes. So you don't have to say, hey, just because it's had a bad outcome, I made a bad decision. Sometimes things happen. So, I'll give you a prime example of this. When you're doing hiring, you can vet someone perfectly. They come in, they've got, they interview extremely well. They've got phenomenal references. They have experience in doing the thing that you're hiring them to do, tremendous capabilities. Everything's amazing. You hire this person. And then 2 weeks in, something happens in their personal life, right? They get a divorce or whatever, or they,
spouse is relocated,
relocated, et cetera, and it doesn't work out. And that doesn't mean that's because you made a bad decision. It just means you probably made a good decision, just had a bad outcome.
Right.
So that doesn't mean you need to change your process.
Right.
So
all right.
That's all I can say on that.
That was a lot.
Actually, there's probably more I could say on that, but that's all I'll say on that for now.
All right. Question number 2. Michael, I run an 8-figure personal injury firm, and I'm frustrated because my leadership team doesn't seem to be stepping up the way I need them to. Almost every important decision still comes to me: hiring, major costs, strategic direction, etc. I keep telling them to be more decisive, but they still wait for my approval on everything. We have over 50 employees now, and I feel like I shouldn't be the bottleneck on every decision, but I don't know how to get my team to actually act like leaders instead of waiting for direction. How do I solve this bottleneck?
Well, I've been here, and I've experienced this myself. When you feel like you're the bottleneck, or everyone's coming to you for the answer, I would really start by asking a better question, and it's more so of like, why are they constantly coming to you to get your approval and your sign off, right? Like, you're saying, hey guys, I want you to make decisions, and I'd like for you guys to be able to step up as leaders, but they're still coming to you, and like, there's probably a reason for that.
Correct.
And it's either because they're afraid to be wrong and make a mistake. So it's basically maybe they don't feel safe, or they, exercising that type of judgment, or they don't feel like they have autonomy, or they know that you're going to give them the answer anyway. So I would look at that more so from the standpoint of like really kind of digging one level deeper into like, what is the root reason why they're not operating autonomously? Is it a lack of like capability? Do they just not know how to do this? Or if they're always coming to me and you're always giving them the answer, then you're training them to come to you so that you give them the answer. Because perhaps they worry that if they made this decision on their own and it ended up being the wrong decision, or at least it had the wrong outcome, that you will get upset with them, and that will put their livelihood in jeopardy. So I think the best thing you can do in this case is to really kind of get an idea as to what is that root reason. And then if you want them to be able to make decisions, what this also means is you have to give them permission to be wrong.
Yes.
And what that means, what that looks like in practice, is that when they are wrong, that they are not penalized for it. So meaning that something we did internally is we kind of created like this decision matrix of saying, like, here are all the things that you can come to me for, right? And if you come to me, like, I already have a solution proposed, and like I can help you evaluate that if you're not sure. But for the most part, unless it has to do with like X, Y, and Z, I just expect you to make the decision on your own. And if you are still wrong about the decision, you're not going to get like punished for it, right? It's okay. Like, it's not to say that every decision I would have made would have been the right one anyway, right? And chances are they have more insight in terms of in their specific area of expertise in their department than I do. And then the other thing that can really help, and I think this is what really unlocked it for me, is stop giving them the answer.
Right.
So when they do come to you, you just put it back on them and say, what would you do? And they say, well, God, that's going to frustrate them, right? They're going to be like, gosh, you used to giving me the answers, right? So it's going to take some time to kind of, we see this with kids as well. Our oldest daughter, I work with her now. We kind of have like our training, right? We like work with her on math and English and so on. And then she'll come to me when she's like struggling with a problem, and she's like, okay, so what do I do? And I tell her, I'm always happy to help her, but it's important for me to see that she's already tried something, right? Whether it's right or whether it's wrong, just so we can work off that. Like, if she can at least explain, okay, I wrote down some answer, and here's why I think it's this answer. I don't care if she's wrong. We're not going to start from zero and me telling her what to do, because then she's not going to learn anything. And it's the same thing with the team. It's like, if you're going to come to me, have at least a solution proposed and kind of some just rationality around that, like why you believe that's the path we should proceed down. And then also I just put it back on them. And after enough times it's saying, what would you do? Then they're like, oh man, it's going to be a really frustrating exercise to even go to Michael, because all he's going to do is put it back on me. So then they stop going to you, and then you start making decisions.
Yeah. I mean, even very early on when I was the go-to to every single person, hey, you got a minute? I would say, yes, I do at 5 p.m. today at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yep.
And then most people don't sit on that problem all day long. They take action. So by the time 5 o'clock came, they didn't need me anymore. So it's reinforcing that behavior.
See, I got something even better than I'm available at 5 p.m. today. You can tell them I'm available 3 weeks from now at 5 p.m.
Okay, I'm talking about when we were like 12 people. Okay, it was a very different world then.
Kidding, sort of.
Kind of.
But then they're like, okay, well, if it's going to be 3 weeks for me to meet, then I might as well make this decision now. Okay, good.
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
That's the goal.
All right, to close us out with question number 3. Hey, Michael, I've built a leadership team that looks great on paper. Experienced attorneys, strong track records, people I trust. But as we've scaled to over 70 people, I'm noticing we're not operating like a cohesive team like when we were smaller. My leaders run their departments well in isolation, but when we need more collaboration or strategic alignment, things fall apart. I can't figure out if the issue is that they're not capable of working together, if I'm not giving them clear enough direction, or if they're just focused on the wrong things. How do you diagnose what's broken when your leadership team individually seems strong but collectively isn't working? I don't know if this is a people problem or a structure problem. It's a good question.
It is a good question. I would say it's probably a human nature problem. So if Charlie Munger was here, right, the late, great Charlie Munger, Berkshire Hathaway and Warren Buffett's partner, he would say that, all human behaviors in life can be attributed to the incentives. And usually what happens is, especially when an organization is smaller, and let's say you have metrics and key performance indicators and KPIs for leaders, those have to do with their departments, right? So that is what they focus on, and that is what they want to grow and improve. And when you ask them, hey, to collaborate together, you kind of introduce almost like a split focus from the standpoint of, okay, do you want us to work together with this other department, but I'm having a hard enough time achieving our departmental, targets, so I have to deprioritize something, and they're generally not going to deprioritize the thing that provides them with stability and security, which is them hitting their targets. So what we have seen to actually scale this, if you want departments to be able to collaborate and work together, is to is to really change up what the metrics are and what the KPIs are. Now, they can still have individual department level KPIs, right? So depending on whether it's your intake staff or your case managers or attorneys and so on. But from a leadership standpoint, is also to have a second KPI that's tied more to overall firm health, whether it's tied to firm profitability, whether it's tied to growth rate, whether it's tied to average case value, whatever that metric is for you that can be shared across departments, so that somebody is not just focusing on solely, hey, we need to make sure that we have this specific conversion rate in this, this one department. I also am thinking about the bigger picture of how does it impact our firm as a whole, how does it impact our vision, how does it impact our EBITDA, et cetera. You think about all these factors, so now it becomes, okay, now I have a reason to focus on collaborating with these people, because there's what I have to do in my own department, but then there's what represents the health and growth of the firm itself.
Right. Yeah, completely agree with that.
That's the way to do it, make it broader, right?
Yeah.
Have some sort of metric that they are aligned and united on. You look at this, any professional sports team. You look at the offense, offense cares about getting, touchdowns when you're talking about football, and then the defense cares about not giving up the ball and touchdowns as well. So, but when you combine the two, both care about winning the game.
Yes.
Right. And that's the main thing. So if you're going to align those two to encourage people to be really team first, it's not just the personalities that you have in the room, and it's not just an alignment of mindsets, it's also an alignment of incentives.
Yes.
So that's the way to do it.
All right. We will see you next time.
Until next time.
You've been listening to the Game Changing Attorney podcast with Michael Mogill. If you found this episode valuable, here are 3 free ways that we can help you grow your law firm. Number 1, download the first chapter of Michael's book absolutely free at gamechangingattorney.com. Number 2, you can shoot Michael a text at 404-531-7691 and ask him any question you'd like. You might just hear the answer on the next episode. And finally, number 3, if you can leave this podcast a 5-star review, it will help us gain access to more influential thought leaders and bring their lessons learned here to you. For more information on this episode, see the show notes in your podcast app or visit legalpodcast.com.